Would you believe me if I told you that several kittens fainted during Mass after touching a sacred cross? And that the priest's reaction, instead of panic, moved everyone present so deeply that the story spread, carrying a message we need to unravel together? It's a story of faith, mystery, and pure emotion that will make you question what is truly possible in the most sacred places and in the most unexpected moments. But before we delve deeper into this incredible event, write in the comments below the names of people and relatives who need prayer, as we will add them all to the main prayer with the rosary we will be making. Imagine an ordinary Sunday in a small town where the local church pulsated with the same spirituality as always. That day's Mass proceeded, amidst soft hymns and the recitation of the Gospel, creating an atmosphere of peace and reflection that enveloped all the faithful. It was a moment of profound recollection, where the worries of the outside world seemed to dissipate, and each person there connected with something greater, seeking comfort, forgiveness, and renewal of faith. The voices of the choir filled the room, the light streaming through the stained glass windows colored the air, and the fragrance of incense wafted gently, making that place truly special for all seeking a moment of divine communion. At the height of the homily, as the priest spoke about the importance of love and charity, something completely unexpected began to happen, shattering the morning's routine. The church door, which had been left slightly ajar, allowed a small, unusual procession to make its triumphant entrance. A group of cats, with impressive calm and serenity, entered the sacred precinct. There was no rush, no fear, just a curious stillness that seemed to belong more to them than to the faithful themselves, who suddenly found themselves staring at those small, furry creatures parading through the side aisles, watched by everyone with a mixture of surprise and restrained admiration. Without taking their eyes off their path, the cats, one by one, moved in a single mysterious direction: the beautiful cross that stood in the center of the pulpit, where the priest was leading the service. This grandiose cross, crafted with unparalleled artistic detail, represented the core of the faith of the entire community, a powerful symbol of sacrifice and redemption. The felines, with their light steps and an air of those who already knew the way, ignored the crowd of faithful and headed directly to that central point, as if drawn by an invisible magnetic force, to the surprise and delight of all who watched the scene with bated breath. When they reached their destination, the kittens, without making a sound, lay down with an almost inexplicable reverence at the foot of the imposing cross. It seemed an act of pure devotion, a behavior so atypical for animals that the scene paralyzed the entire church. Then the unthinkable occurred. One of the kittens, the smallest and most curious of all, stretched out one of its paws with an almost ethereal delicacy and placed it against the base of the cross. At the moment of contact, to the utter disbelief of those present, it gently turned onto its side, remained completely still on the ground, and for a moment appeared to have actually fainted, without moving a single muscle, leaving an air of mystery and shock hanging over the assembly. A deathly silence fell over the church. Silent questions popped into everyone's minds. Had it really been a faint? Had that little animal felt some powerful energy, a profound connection upon touching the sacred symbol? The atmosphere was thick with anticipation and mystery, as all eyes, now even more attentive, fixed on the motionless kitten and then on the priest, waiting for a reaction, a word, a sign. It was a moment of testing for everyone's faith and understanding, a crack in the fabric of routine that exposed the possibility of something beyond what the eyes could see or reason could explain. The priest's reaction, however, was what truly touched everyone's hearts and became the heart of this astonishing story. Far from any sign of alarm or distraction, he maintained the serenity that always characterized him. He did not interrupt the Mass, but rather, with a gaze full of compassion and wisdom, he calmly observed the kittens, dedicating a moment of silent prayer for them, keeping his voice steady and his presence unwavering. His attitude demonstrated unwavering faith, accepting this unusual event not as an interruption, but perhaps as a manifestation of divine grace among his congregation. It was as if the peace he preached materialized in his own posture, serving as an example of how to deal with the inexplicable with love and devotion. And so, as the Mass continued and prayers echoed through the altar, time seemed to pass differently. The kitten remained motionless for a long time, testing the patience and faith of those present. But at a certain point, when least expected, a gentle movement began. First, a small tremor in his paw, then his head slowly raised, his eyes opening with an innocent blink. Slowly, he rose again, stretching his body with typical feline grace, and then with a determined gait to everyone's utter admiration. He walked toward the priest, gently climbing the steps of the pulpit, as if the path between them had been previously established, seeking a safe haven in this man of faith. The story of that Sunday in church echoed not only in the pews, but in the souls of everyone who witnessed the unusual event. Many confessed that that day redefined their own perception of the divine and the presence of the sacred. Accustomed to rituals and repeated words, they were confronted with a manifestation of faith that did not follow the script, emerging from the purest simplicity of nature. The calm entrance of the animals, the serenity with which they approached the pulpit, and the scene of the kitten at the foot of the cross all reminded them that the sacred is not confined to the walls of the church or to human conventions, but manifests itself in mysterious and moving ways, often using the most humble and unexpected messengers. This vivid experience opened the eyes and hearts of the faithful to the presence of God in the details, in the inexplicable, and even in the fragility of a small being, profoundly expanding their understanding of where divine grace can touch and dwell. And what can we learn from these kittens? They, in their simplicity and innocence, seemed devoid of any malice or prejudice, approaching the cross not out of learned doctrine, but out of a profound intuition that transcends logic and human understanding. They came not with the intention of asking, demanding, or judging, but with a silent surrender, a pure acceptance of the sacred that resonated in the room. Perhaps the kitten's fainting was more than a mere physical incident. Perhaps it was a representation of total surrender, of the humility that surrenders to a greater power, only to be reborn and rise again with renewed purpose. These small beings, who usually inhabit the margins of our temples and our daily affairs, were invited to the center of the sanctuary that day, demonstrating that in the vast realm of faith, everyone, from the most insignificant to the most powerful, has a place and a calling, as long as they approach with a pure heart, unarmed and ready to experience the unexpected. The memory of that day at Mass, permeated with mystery and emotion, did not dissolve into the air like incense vapor. On the contrary, it embedded itself in the memory of the faithful like a diamond, shining and reminding them of the wonder of the inexplicable each time doubt or skepticism attempted to infiltrate their minds. The story became a living testimony, whispered from mouth to mouth and heart to heart, a silent invitation to seek a faith less formulated by words and more felt by the soul, less bound by rituals and more authentically lived. Many in the congregation began to report that, after that event, they began to observe the world with a more attentive and sensitive eye, seeking the small miracles of everyday life, the divine interventions that previously went unnoticed amidst routine. The episode of the kittens at Mass not only solidified the belief in the active presence of the divine in our world, but also instilled a sense of wonder and a renewed expectation that, at any moment and in the most unexpected ways, the extraordinary can break the surface of the ordinary, as long as our hearts are open and receptive to recognizing and experiencing it. This story of the kittens in church makes us reflect on the faintings in our own lives, the moments when we feel paralyzed, powerless, like that kitten when he touched the cross. Just as the priest did not panic, but offered prayer and peace, we too are called to remain calm in the face of adversity. We need to remember that daily prayer is our strength, our personal cross that we carry and where we can find refuge. It is the fuel for our faith, for forgiving those who hurt us, for finding peace in our troubled hearts, and for opening our hearts to conversion. Believing that divine grace manifests itself in the simplest and most unexpected ways can help us have more faith and see signs where before we saw only problems. May this story inspire us to pray unceasingly for those who suffer, those who doubt, and those who need light on their paths. If you have people in your heart who need this light, this strength in prayer, write their names in the comments now so we can include them in our main prayer with a rosary. What meaning did you find in this surprising story of the kittens in the church? What message did the priest's reaction, and the mystery of that fainting and awakening, bring to your heart? We would love to read your interpretations and thoughts in the comments below. Your faith, your reflections, and your engagement are what make our community stronger and our channel a place of true communion. If you were touched by this story, if it somehow made you reflect on faith and the unexpected, don't forget to like it, share it with your friends and family, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming curious stories and messages of faith. Peace be with you.